Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. Building your personal brand on social media has become increasingly important in building a career and a life that you love. Whether you love it or hate it, your online presence can open doors, create opportunities, and help you connect with like-minded people who can change the trajectory of your life and career, but it can also do the opposite. A clear personal brand shows people who you are, and an unclear personal brand leaves people not really knowing how to interact with you. Building a personal brand can feel overwhelming, and even that term alone might feel confusing as you're hearing me say it a million times. So today we're breaking down what it actually means, why it actually matters for your goals, and most importantly, how to do it in a way that feels genuine and authentic to who you are.
I'm super excited about this topic because obviously building a personal brand has been very instrumental for both Grace and I over the past couple of years. I know I would not be anywhere close to where I am today if I didn't have a personal brand. All of the freelance gigs that I've gotten in the past have mainly been due to my personal brand. I'm trying to think of all of the other opportunities and things that have opened up because of our personal brand, but it is becoming increasingly more important. Like you said, I feel like it's kind of becoming like your digital resume. Like it's 2025 and people are realizing that the people that have social media presence aren't just like, I'm going to give a typical influencer, an Alex Earl. Like you don't have to want to be an influencer, a celebrity to have a personal brand online. That's kind of not the point. And in this episode, we're going to talk about why it's important to have a personal brand and what that even means. So we wanted to get started with kind of talking about what is a personal brand and why it's important. So again, it's not just a following. It is not just the amount of people that follow you on social media, because you can gain followers on social media in a bunch of different ways, and it's going to have like different extents to how important that's going to be for you. So let's say you had 100,000 followers, but the only thing that you've posted on your account is like random trends, and you started your account back in 2020 when everyone was dancing on TikTok, and that's what you posted, just like random things. You've never talked to the camera, you don't have a theme for your content, anything like that, but you have 100,000 followers. That's not necessarily doing anything for your personal brand. That's not going to open up any doors for you no matter what you're trying to do. So when we talk about building a personal brand, what we really are talking about is, let's say you have 100,000 followers. What do those 100,000 followers know you for? I heard a content coach say this. She was saying, let's say you have 0 followers right now, but picture yourself at 1 million followers, or picture yourself at 100,000 followers. What do you want to be known for? That's what you're building your personal brand in, and that's how you're going to start positioning yourself online.
I think too, a good way, because your personal brand isn't always necessarily tied to social media. We're talking about it obviously in the context of social media today, because that's what we've built our personal brands on social media, and that's what a lot of y'all want to do. But even just in your day-to-day life, there are people that you probably know, and you know them to be a specific thing. You're like, oh yeah, they're always like super positive or super patient or super kind, or yeah, like they always have like this type of humor, or there's something that you know them for, or they're super motivational about this. Or you think about the people that you know that like, oh yeah, like they're a CrossFit athlete and they also love dogs, or you know what I mean? Like there's something that you know the people in your physical life too to be, and that's a good way to think about it too. It's like, what do people know you for? And when you're consistent with that messaging throughout your post, people start to understand, okay, yeah, like you are the person who does XYZ thing.
That is such a good point, because like you said, we definitely talk about it in the context of social media, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, you post on TikTok every day because you want to grow your personal brand. There are people who have a very, very strong personal brand simply by posting things in their industry on LinkedIn and being super consistent on LinkedIn. Now LinkedIn does do video posts, which apparently are like helping creators grow a lot over on LinkedIn. But before video was a thing on LinkedIn, people were building a really strong personal brand simply through LinkedIn posts. So text can be a really great way to like get that message across as well. But those are all just formats for the overarching, what do you want your message to be? How do you want to position yourself to be a leader in your industry? For example, one of the big opportunities that I've gotten from my personal brand is it actually landed me a full-time job a couple of years ago. And at the time I was still working my full-time corporate audit job, but obviously I was posting on social media and my personal brand was branding me as sort of this Gen Z financially responsible 20, I think I was like 23 at the time or something. And a company reached out. They were looking for someone in marketing, and their product was marketing toward people in Gen Z. And they were like, and it was a fintech app. So they were marketing to people in the finance space, Gen Z people. So I was already super clear on talking to that audience. So they reached out to me and they offered me a full-time job, and I took it. So that's just an example of when you do get super clear on your branding, your messaging, your positioning, those opportunities start coming to you instead of you looking out for them because you're building this digital resume.
I think too, with personal branding, like in that situation too, they are able to understand who you are before they've even had a conversation with you. And I think sometimes when we're, because in the context of thinking about building your personal brand on social media, I think where a lot of people go wrong is like, I want to grow on social media. Like you're saying, I want to be an influencer. I want to whatever. And what happens is if you're focused on, like, let's say you were just focused on like financial education, never really sharing your perspective, you're just regurgitating tips. It becomes very transactional. People are coming to you to get that tip. They say, oh, I want to go get this money tip that they really could get anywhere else, right? But your personal brand, part of your personal brand was sharing your perspective on it. So now people build trust with you because that is what your brand is. And now they say it's less about what is the tip and it's what is Erin saying. Like, I want to know what Erin has to say about credit cards, or I want to know what Erin has to say about whatever. And now they want to go to you for those things over just going to Google. So I think sometimes we think, okay, the more followers I get, bigger personal brand. But then if there's no humanness, like there's no like actual personal edge to it, you're just a talking head to people. And so then it's not really clear why should people listen to you? Why should they care what you have to say? And again, I think sometimes then people think, well, then I have to be an expert in this area, and you don't, right? There are people who, I don't know what the girl's name is, but she did a series that was like unf my life, like uneffing my life and whatever. She's not an expert in uneffing her life, right? She's documenting her journey uneffing her life. And now people know her as somebody who figures ish out. So they're like, well, now I want to know what this person has to say when I'm feeling stuck and confused because that person figured it out. And that's how they've branded themselves. And it can be so many, I don't know, there's just a lot of different ways to go about it, but followers don't equal personal brand, and people have to understand why they should care what you have to say specifically. And a lot of that comes from making your brand personal and not just transactional.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. So the first thing is, like you just said, you can't just be a talking head that spits out tips that you can find on Google. Like, for example, if you use AI, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, give me a content idea, and let's use the money niche as an example, since a lot of people know that that's how we started our personal brands. ChatGPT comes back and the content idea is 3 ways to save more money. And they're super generic, like outward facing, 3 tips to blah, blah, blah. You can literally go Google those 3 tips. Everybody knows those 3 tips. Why do those 3 tips need to come from you? But I'll use an example of a content piece that I literally posted last week. My car was in the shop and I'm going to have to use $1,500 out of my emergency fund to cover the payment for my car repair, right? Okay, so I told that story in a 40-second TikTok video, and all of a sudden the message is still the same, like you need an emergency fund, but it's coming from this kind of like storytelling aspect of something that literally happened to me that week. And that's so much more relatable for someone to listen to that than for me to say a 40-second video on you need an emergency fund because what happens if your car goes in the shop? That doesn't need to come from me. That can come from Google. But now people are watching that video. Yes, they're starting to realize that I give some money tips in my content, but they're also starting to care about me as well. And that kind of, when people talk about like, do you need a niche? Should I niche down? It's not necessarily that you're picking a niche. You only need to talk about that niche, and you have to put all of your content in that outward facing educational tip-based content in that niche. It's just kind of an overarching like messaging positioning lens that you're having in your content. And for me, a big one is money. So I'm positioning myself as that financially responsible 26-year-old girl that's living in Nashville that balances living her life but still being financially responsible. So money does come up a lot in my content, but it's all through the lens of me and my personal brand.
I think there's this analogy, I don't know who came up with this, but it's about bread in the grocery store, which I think is such a good way to illustrate it. So it's like when you go into the bread aisle at the grocery store, or ice cream, if you're like me and you're gluten-free, right? I guess I'm also dairy-free. So limited options.
Whatever aisle.
Yeah, just wherever you are in the grocery store, right? Okay. Let's just say bread. You go up to the bread aisle. there's tons and tons of different white bread. You know what I mean? But you probably buy one. You probably don't rotate between the bread that you buy every week. You probably buy one, and there's a reason why. Or if you're buying a new product, like, let's say you are going to buy like new cleaning supplies and you're sitting there looking at all of the multi-purpose cleaner in the aisle, you're gonna like naturally gravitate towards one over the other because of the way that these companies have branded themselves. The bread that you like that's fluffy and light over the bread that's dense and whatever, you're gonna go towards one over the other. And that's how I see personal branding, where it's like there are tons of people posting money content, tons of people posting personal development content like I post, but it's like what about you makes it unique? It's the way that you talk about it. It's your perspectives. Because again, I can sit here and say, like, I did the series on resetting my life. Anyone can talk about vision boarding, but I'm talking about my experience vision boarding. Or if I'm talking about a morning routine, I'm talking about my morning routine and balancing it with like, well, I'm staying up later because I'm playing pickleball and now I feel guilty that my mornings are starting later and da da da. Like, you have to bring in your unique perspective or it's just going to blend in with everybody else. And I think that because I put a story sticker on my Instagram asking like, if you could pick Erin and I's brain on anything, what would you pick it on? And we were just talking about this the other day, some of the responses. So many people said how to pick a niche on social media. And I sat there and I'm like, guys, what? To me, picking a niche feels so 2022. When I started content, I feel like that was the vibe of pick a niche, you need a niche, whatever. And now I think we're in an era of the personal brand where you are the niche. So it's like your thoughts and perspectives that's what makes you stand out. So in order to have a successful personal brand, you need to embrace what makes you, which is your thoughts, your perspectives, your experiences. And I think people often then hide behind a niche and then end up posting transactional content. They wonder, why is the content not performing? Nobody knows who you are, why they should listen to you, or what your thoughts and perspectives are. Get out there and share it.
And
Be
that
the bread that someone
yes.
buys.
And that transactional content, I think, often comes through from that kind of like expert POV, like you mentioned. Like you try to be an expert and you're like, well, my niche can't be something that I'm not an expert in. Your content and your personal brand are going to go so much further when you mix that expert POV with the journey POV. So you're kind of like rotating between the two. Like if there is something where you genuinely think, like, hey, I've made a lot of progress in this area and I want to help people who are a few steps behind me make progress in that area too, you definitely can make content that gives those tips, gives that outward facing kind of content, but there is still a way to do it in more of like a storytelling, like inward facing way, which we can talk about different ways that we do that. But I think that both of our personal brands have been like, we've gotten a lot further with them when we've been able to like bring people along journeys that we've been working on as well. So it's like, we're not coming at like the money niche having it all figured out, right? We're coming at it from like, hey, we're working on this as well. And like, these are things that we're struggling with, or these are lessons that we learned. This is a mistake that I made. People love to see that too. So yeah, don't think that, okay, well, I can only start my personal brand if there's an area of my life. Like if I want to start talking about health and fitness, I need to be a bodybuilder or whatever. It's like, no, people want to see like, okay, here's my morning routine, like tricking myself to become a morning person, or like resetting my morning routine because I haven't had a good morning routine for the last year and I'm trying to get myself out of it. People love to see that stuff as well. So yeah, you definitely don't have to pick a niche that is something that you're very good at. And the other thing that I'll say on that is I got a really good piece of advice a couple of years ago that was like, I think the quote was, no one is more qualified to solve the problems of a prior version of you. So if you are sitting here saying like, well, I really don't think that there's anything that I could like give value to people in, there is, and you're going to find it when you start thinking about who you were a couple years ago and all of the progress that you've made, and start to identify the pain points of who you were a couple of years ago and go from there. Because that one thing completely changed my life, especially in when I was growing my personal brand in the money space, because I've made a lot of progress in the prior version of me. I know exactly what her pain points are and I know exactly how to talk to that girl.
Mm-hmm. And I think like you're an expert in your own experiences. Like, yeah, if you're resetting your morning routine and then you figure it out, Okay, period. You just figured out how to reset your morning routine. Great. Now you know how to do that. Like, it doesn't have to be something that you've done every single day for 10 years to be able to speak on it. And I think also too, in a world where we have AI and Google is free and there is just an information overload, people are, I think, exhausted in some ways on educational content. And this is something I found when I was doing money content, because I I felt like it was becoming transactional in a way. And I mean, I was fatigued on doing it because I just care about personal development as a whole more than just money specifically. But I just found that like people can get a lot of the answers elsewhere. And it's like people want to hear more about the journey. They want to feel like they're going on it with you. So yes, there was definitely value in me saying things like, you know, I saved this much money, or I paid off my student loan debt. Here's how I did it. That works really well. But also the content of like when I would post updates on my student loan debt, for example, and sharing, okay, here's what I did this month. Here's how I did that, or my freelancing journey. I talk about it now as like, I've built this business to where it is now. But when I was doing it, I posted my very first full calendar year. I shared what my income was for the full calendar year, month by month. I talked about what I charged clients, when I increased my rates, how I did it. Like I was sharing the journey of it, and people loved it. And I was very transparent. Hey, look, I just had to fire a client. It's the first time I've ever done it. Or, you know, I wasn't ever claiming to be an expert. And I think also when you look at it through that lens, it takes some of the pressure off, because I think a lot of people don't start because they're afraid of, well, I need to, like you said, I need to be an expert in order to start. And then you put this pressure on yourself, which I mean, I definitely did, to constantly be up in the know of every single thing that's going on in your industry. I don't want to be sitting there on the news tab of Google reading personal finance news every day, because I feel like I'm going to become irrelevant if I don't know the new IRA limits and the what. But truly, nobody cares. Like it's, you know what I mean? If you want to be a news creator or like a, you know, fine, cool. But I think it's more about your perspectives. And one thing I'll say too is just like a random quick note. One person I think who does a really good job of this, of the balance of its education based. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, okay, well, I do want to provide education, you know, I want to share, I don't want to share everything about my life or every single perspective that I have. I want to kind of, you know, figure out a balance there. Someone who I think does this really well is our friend Jeremy Schneider. His Instagram is Personal Finance Club. Every single one of his posts, like there's some sort of education or value that goes into it, but it's all like he'll comment, like his caption will always kind of go back to his opinion as a multi-millionaire guy who retired in like his 30s or 40s, right? And I think he does that balance so well, where people gain a lot of education and value, but people are there because they're like, what does Jeremy have to say? And I think he's done a really, really good job with his personal brand. So if that's something that you're thinking about, like, how do I balance it? I would check out his page, because I think it might give you a cool idea too. I mean, he's less of like a TikToker than I guess we are. Like he's not a girly pop, obviously, but like I think his content, and I think he does a good job of like balancing the two things.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like talking about what you're interested in and letting your, I don't even want to say, I don't want to use the word niche, because as we're saying, like you don't have to pick one topic and only talk about that. Like you can have some different kind of content pillars and talk about different things, but just get started and see what you gravitate toward. Like the first video that you post on your channel does not have to be the exact same thing that you post for the rest of your life. For example, like I was just talking to my one friend about this the other day, and she's really into running right now. She's training for a half marathon, and she has a TikTok account that maybe has like 500 followers, and she has maybe, let's say, 15 videos on there. And she was like, Erin, I've been saying like for so long that I want to start posting running content. Like I'm super interested in it. It just feels like it would be like a passion project for me. I need the kick in the butt to just get started. And I was like, just get started. And if you post about training for your marathon for the next 3 months and then the marathon's over and you're not running anymore and you're doing something else, then start posting about something else. Like if you build your personal brand in a way where you're still storytelling and talking about yourself and like giving people a little bit of insight into different aspects of your life, you can transition into different things naturally. Yes, people are going to fall off transparently. I haven't grown on Instagram in the last probably 6 months, and it's because when I look at my insights every single month, the amount of unfollows that I have is the same or like similar metrics to the number of follows that I have every month, which means that probably 1 to 2,000 people every single month are unfollowing me on Instagram. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing. We want that to happen because a lot of my content when I first got started was this very transactional, educational based content that was like 3 tips to get your money together. I didn't know what I know now. So I wasn't intentionally trying to build my personal brand. So if those people don't care about my personal brand and don't care, this sounds bad, but like if they don't care about me, I don't want them there. And so you should want people to naturally kind of like cycle out when your content starts to morph into something else that you're interested in.
Absolutely. I want to go back to what you were saying about when your content transitions, because I think when we have this perspective of how do I say this? I think if you have a niche, it actually becomes harder to pivot your brand down the line than if you have a personal brand. For example, if you are niched into like, let's say travel tips for people in their 20s or budget travel tips, right? You are now, if your every single post is budget travel tips and it's transactional and it's whatever, the second you try to change what you're doing, people, they have no idea who you are. They're on that page for budget travel tips. They don't care who you are. They don't give two hoots unless you're like sharing who you are. But then again, that goes into your personal brand or you're sharing more of your thoughts and perspectives. However, if you have a brand of, let's say, like, even let's just say it was like your tagline was like a girl living her life to the fullest, whatever. And so you talk about traveling and the experiences that you want to have in your 20s because you want to live life to the fullest. Let's say then you decide, let's say you're digital nomading or something, and you say, okay, well, I'm taking a break from digital nomading. You're still a girl who cares about living her life to the fullest. So now let's say you go home and you're like, okay, what's next? I'm still trying to live my life to the fullest. How can I do that in my hometown? Now you have a series about living your life to your fullest when you're living at your parents'. Guess what? Your followers are still going to care because they didn't follow you for budget travel tips. They followed you because they're inspired by your journey of being a person who wants to live life to the fullest. So when you niche so hard, it then I think becomes harder. It becomes more difficult to pivot. And also, I wanted to mention, I heard like Alex Hormozy say this in an interview that he did. I think it was with Carrot Financial, which Carrot's one of my freelance clients and they brought him on. So I believe onto their podcast. I think it was that episode, but it's really, really good when you're thinking about branding, content creation, businesses. Like I would highly recommend listening to it. But basically, he talks about how having a following does not equal having influence. And I think that people think influencer, you have influence. And that's not always true. Like there are content creators who have millions of followers and they do a brand deal and they don't convert a single person. Or there are people who we did some case studies on them in one of Carrot's newsletters at one point, as people who openly share this information. I wasn't like digging this out, but there are some people who have hundreds of thousands of followers and they released like a clothing line product and nobody bought it because there's no connection. It's like you're just a talking head. So I think that sometimes we think, okay, well, if I orient around one specific thing, I can grow my platform faster and then, whatever, I'll have all these followers, I'll have influence, I'll make money, da da da. And I actually think it's the opposite. It's like sharing your thoughts, your perspectives, who you are. And you can have a common thread, like how money is a common thread, but it's your perspective on finances or how they relate to your life. And then if you decide to pivot, you're always going to be a financially responsible person, unless you go off the deep end. And in that case, I'm like, okay, hold on. Something's going, if Erin is ever not financially responsible,
yes,
something's, you know what I mean? Something is wrong and I'm coming to the rescue. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's always going to be a thread in your life. So it's like going back to what that is, that's how you get actual influence to where people want to buy what you have to sell. They want to, listen to the podcast episodes you put out. They want to hear more from you. They want to buy your book if you want to write one day. Like that's how you get influence, not from being a talking head.
Totally. Okay, I feel like this isn't even a hot take anymore because as we said, like, niches were very 2022, which that's when Grace and I both started our channel. So obviously we picked a niche and that's what we went with, but it's 2025 now. And I feel like everyone's starting to realize that niches are a crutch. And I still to this day, like, you will find me like on a day where I have not one singular content idea relying on my niche for something to post. Like I know like having money as the niche that I started with is a crutch because if I don't have a content idea, I can post my budget breakdown or I can post what I spend in a week. Like it is good to have that kind of like overarching theme for a lot of your content for that reason, to where if you don't have anything to post that day, you can come up with something, you have a starting point. However, why I say it's a crutch is because how you're going to build that personal brand and get people to know you and care about you is you need to develop systems that allow you to capture your thoughts. So, for example, what we've been talking about for the last 26 minutes of this episode has been about how people need to know you, know your story, care about you. And that's going to come from, for example, the conversations that you have with your friends. Why do your friends love you? Because the conversations that you have with them. So those conversations that you have with your friends, your thoughts, your opinions, you're talking about things that interest you, those need to translate into social media content in order for your followers to know you and love you as well for those very same things. So you need to find a system to be capturing all of those thoughts. For a lot of people, it's literally just like a notes app in your phone where, okay, you have a thought, you write it down, and then all of a sudden you can create a 30-second talking head TikTok video sharing that same thought, whether it's a hot take, an opinion that you have, a conversation that you had with a friend that day. You'd be surprised how many thoughts you have in a day that you can jot down on that notes app and then literally just execute on the video on. So I would say that that's probably a good like first step into being like, okay, I don't want to niche down. I want people to care about me, but what the heck do I talk about? Because I don't want to use a niche as a crutch.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of a couple videos I posted recently where I have been challenging myself to talk about more of those random thoughts that I have and keep a better inventory of them, because I'll have them and then I just kind of like forget. And it's funny because those two videos are two of like the top performing videos that have like I've put out in the last couple of weeks. And one of them was on the idea of, which, full transparency, I used Claude to write the on-screen text hook for this video because I was like, I need a punchy way to say this. Because the thing is some of these daily thoughts you have, you might think they're kind of boring, but then when you actually think about how to convey them in terms of storytelling. So for example, the video was about how, like, the concept was, I'm using Walmart grocery delivery to save time because I'm busy. I'm in a season of life where I'm very busy. And at first I was like, no, I should be able to like get myself to Walmart to get my groceries. It's not that far. And like, it doesn't take that long. Da, da, da. But then I was like, it does actually take that long. It takes me like 2.5 hours every time I go because I got to wait in line and shop and then unpack my whatever. So I made a video about it. I made a video just basically saying that I'm doing Walmart grocery delivery. Sometimes I feel guilty because, you know, this is the season of life where I don't have kids, I don't have a partner. So like I should have, you know, all the time in the world in theory, but I really want to invest more time in other areas of my life. So I'm paying for grocery delivery. I used Claude to write the on-screen text hook where it says like, doing everything yourself isn't virtuous, it's ineffective. That's punchy. People are like, whoa, okay. Video performed really well. I did another video the other day. I had this thought of like, wow, I traveled almost every single month last year. And I did enjoy it, but I haven't had a desire to really travel at all this year. And actually, when I went away for 3 days to LA, I was like, I cannot wait to be home. And I thought, did I actually enjoy traveling, or did I just, you know, hate where I lived and I just wanted to escape? And so I made a video about it, literally just asking that and saying that very basic thought. Video did great. People were very in the comments, sharing their thoughts, whatever. That is such a, like, again, a basic thought. I like where I live so much, I don't want to travel. And it all started from, I haven't wanted to travel at all this year. And I traveled. Like, it's a very, very basic thing. The thing is, it's unique to me. It's a question that I'm asking. And what you'll find is that there's billions of people on this earth. You think it's a unique thought to you. I mean, it is. It's a unique perspective. However, there's billions of people. The odds that somebody else has had the same damn thought is very high. So now it's relatable to other people, but it's still coming from your perspective, your life. And this is an example of inward content, which we wanted to talk about in this episode too. Inward content is like coming from your own perspectives. So it's which we both used to do these types of videos, the like what I spend in a week, or which that was crazy. Do you remember that? That was an era where like,
I'm so
oh
happy I
my
don't do
gosh.
those anymore.
Oh, me too. I hated filming my life every single week, every single detail of oh my goodness. Yeah, no. But I feel like everyone was doing them on social media at that point too. And they are still cutesy videos and people like to watch them. But
yeah, and if I don't have a video idea, you will see what I spend in a week.
What I spend in a week, or a spending recap, or you will be seeing that. But it's like the how I did this, or my thoughts on this, or like, we have some examples of how I decorated my classroom if you're a teacher, or recipes I made, or things I eat being gluten free, or how I made friends in St. Pete, or even I have content that's like, I do these monthly updates on living in St. Pete and what my thoughts are. There's probably tons of other people who post those types of things, but it's how I did it, why I did it. And then you're talking about, yeah, the how you did it, the why. The outward content is how to do something, like how to track your spending, how to decorate your classroom, how to cook chicken, whatever. You're teaching people how to cook a chicken, but nobody knows why you cook it that way, or why you cut it that way, or the tools that you use. Like, people want to know the why behind it. And there's value for outward content. For example, if you want to do faceless content, or which is still a thing, there's people who do faceless content and it works. I think that's not really, if people don't know who you are, I feel like you probably don't have a personal brand. However, if that's really what you want to do and there's a reason for it, whatever, fine, you can do the how to. Or if you want to be an industry expert where people know you for your tips and they don't know anything else about you, fine, you can share the how to do this, how to do that, how to do whatever. But just know that if you ever want to do a how I do this, nobody's going to care.
Yeah, or not even like a how because again, that's kind of coming from more of that like expert POV. But if you want to post your random thought, that is, what was the example that you used? Like, oh, I don't want to travel because I love where I live. Like, that is, like you said, a very random thought. And I always say, like, my random thoughts and the things that I think are like so weird and dumb, those are the ones that end up performing the best for me too. Like, for example, a couple weeks ago, I was driving back from Pittsburgh back to Nashville. It was like an 8 or a 10-hour road trip day. And when I got back, I was like, I really need something to post. So I'm just going to like vlog me putting all of my stuff away, like get some clips of me like unpacking my suitcases and all of that. And then I did like a 30-second voiceover talking about how when people tell you to move away in your 20s, they don't tell you how much of a process it is to go home and how you have to dedicate a lot of time and money to going back home to see your family. And it performed like so much better than all of my stuff that I spend a lot of time on. It's always the random things, but it's getting a system for capturing all of those random thoughts. And then the second piece of that is, so now that you have your random thoughts or your perspectives, your hot takes, whatever it may be, once you have them, now you need to come up with a format for how you're going to actually execute on it. So there's two main things here, maybe three, because you can definitely post the like just little B-roll clip with some text on screen. Like, if it's intentional text that really goes along with your personal brand, you definitely can use that and it can help you grow and still nurture your audience. But I think two main formats would be talking to the camera, so literally just propping up the camera and talking, or the other one would be a vlog. So like we were just talking about, you would have that thought and then you would put that thought into a little voiceover script, but then the visual on the screen would be clips of you doing something. I do a lot of just me like cleaning my apartment because I'm at home 24/7. So like, what else am I doing? I'm just in my apartment. I have to be doing something, so I'll clean. And I also hate cleaning, so it like forces me to clean because I'm like, oh, I need to get some B-roll clips. But literally just any miscellaneous random clip of you, but then all of the value is in the story. So it really doesn't matter what the visual is. Yes, there's a lot of tricks. Like, you need to make sure the first couple of clips are really engaging so it catches people's eye and like all of that. But the value comes from the story. So you start with the thought, then you decide, is this going to be a talking to camera video or a vlog? Or you can literally do both. I know we've talked about this, Grace. Like, you have one thought and then maybe for Instagram, you do a vlog, but then TikTok, talking to camera, just kind of like chatty, conversational FaceTime style videos actually perform really, really well. So film it on TikTok, talking to camera too. Like, it literally doesn't matter. You can kind of test out both and see what your audience responds to.
I think so. Couple things here. There is a creator named Mino Lee, and he does a lot of like tips on creating content. And actually, I got this video from him. It was like one of his little funnels where he's like, comment this word and I'll send you the link to this video that I made on storytelling. And I was just like, always trying to learn something. And he's super knowledgeable. He actually came into Carrot Financial. They have a private Discord community for content creators. People can apply to join and it's free. But Mino came in as one of the guests and he was super knowledgeable. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going to watch this video. I haven't finished watching it, but it's really interesting. So I'll leave it in the show notes of this episode if anyone is curious on like the storytelling aspect, but also don't let it overwhelm you if you're just getting started, but just maybe it might help spark some ideas. But when it comes to actually then, like you said, translating the ideas, I want to go back to what you were saying about kind of like the different formats for this, because talking to camera is the first time you do it, and I mean, the first 100 times you do it, you look dumb. Let's just be, you look dumb, right?
You feel even dumber.
Yes, you look dumb, you feel dumber. And you know what? You still got to hit post, girl. Okay? To be honest, and we always say this, go back and look at our old podcast episodes, go scroll back and look at my own TikToks. You will see dumb and dumber. You know what I mean? You will, okay?
So
it's really
dumb.
fine. It's not even, it's just cringy. That's all it is. But also, like, I know the girl Sarah Boss says embarrassment is a waste of an emotion, and I love her for that. I do. And I also think that just like feeling dumb, feeling cringe, whatever, also a waste of an emotion. Nobody gives a crap. Okay. I'm trying to like not swear on this podcast, but I just think you just have to put yourself out there. So it's, yeah, when you have that thought, set the camera up and just record the thought. And guess what? If you don't like it, I think you should still post it, but you don't have to. If you want to take the first 30 days of trying to build your personal brand on social media, just getting comfortable in front of the camera, filming videos and not even posting them, period. Fine. You know what I mean? Whatever you need to do, I do think you should post them. Why not? Send it. You just made the video. However, you don't have to put them out there if you don't want to. Get comfortable doing that. And then learn how to storytell. And that will get better as you go. We're both still learning how to storytell. We're both still learning how to create content and how to improve our content and what we're doing. And you can see it if you go, again, scroll back, you can watch how our content has evolved and things that we've experimented with and formats we've tried and things that haven't worked. The point is just to start doing something. Like, if filming, talking to the camera is what you're comfortable with, do that. If doing a, B-roll with voiceover is what you're comfortable with, do that. If neither of them make you comfortable, pick one and force yourself to do one. Sorry. You know what I mean? Do it. At some point, you just have to post something. And I think just taking those thoughts and letting it just be something, be some piece of content without overthinking it and getting it out there. But also know that you can create content behind closed doors and just keep it there until you feel like, okay, yeah, let me like start to put this out. It's no one knows. No one knows if you private the video or if you just keep it in your drafts until you get better. No one knows.
I actually think that most people should start with talking to camera videos because it's the thing that people want to do the least. And it's going to be really hard to build a personal brand if you're not speaking directly to people. People want to feel like they're on FaceTime with you. And if all you're posting is vlogs, vlogs take so much longer to film, edit, and post. And it takes a lot more like creativity on the editing side. So if you have zero knowledge of how to create a piece of content, but you're like, I don't want to talk to the camera, so I'm going to hide behind a vlog, because still to this day, like even though it takes me longer, it takes me less energy to film, edit, and post a vlog than it does talking to camera, because naturally I'm an introvert. I don't love like presenting, and that's what it feels like when you're talking to the camera. You're getting in front of the camera, you have to have a lot of energy. But when I'm typing out a voiceover script and just speaking into my microphone and hiding behind a vlog, like it is way less energy for me. But I think that people say, I don't want to talk to the camera. I don't want to get comfortable talking to the camera, so I'm just going to do vlogs. But then it takes them 5 hours to edit. Now, I will say, now it takes me significantly less time than it used to. But when I started with vlogs, it would take me like 5 hours to edit a vlog because I had no idea what I was doing. So if you're a beginner, you're going to burn out from that because everybody has a job when they're starting content creation. They don't have 5 hours to edit a vlog every single day.
Even just getting the clips, having to remember to get the vlog clips throughout the day. The number of times I like have gone to be like, oh, I'm going to vlog this day. And then halfway through the day, I get so damn distracted that I forgot to get clips the second half of the day. And now I don't have enough clips for the video. And I'm like, great, what am I supposed to do with that? But also, people want to know who you are. And I also think in a world where people are literally starting to make little AI like versions of themselves and making content that is an AI thingy. I don't even know what the freak you call it. AI image talking. It's not even the real human being. People want to see you being just real and talking. And they're way easier to edit because you're just kind of trimming the beginning and the end of the clip, slapping some captions on, and there you go. It's about
And I will say, with like the forgetting to film the day in the life stuff, I think when people rely on vlogs, especially as a beginner, then all of a sudden you look at your content calendar. Like, for example, I try to have at least the next week of content like planned out, because I'm the type of person, if I wake up and I know I have to post something, but I have no idea what I just get stressed out, and I don't want to live like that. So I know generally what I'm going to post for the next week, even though I don't have them filmed and edited already, but I know what I need to do for the upcoming week. If you are relying on vlogs, then you're weekly content calendar is going to start looking like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to post a morning routine. The next day I'm going to post a day in the life. And you're forgetting that you need to start with that random thought, like we talked about. But when you're kind of like opening up that format for, I can talk to the camera, I can do a vlog, I can put a little like trending audio with text on screen, then all of a sudden you're remembering that you need to start with the thoughts, the stories, and then you can decide the format later. So going back to like, you should be starting with talking to camera videos realistically. When I started my TikTok channel, the best thing that I did for myself, I've told this story on here before, but I told myself, I was like, I'm going to commit to this for 60 days. And for 60 days, I'm going to post 3 videos a day. And I stuck to that. And by the end of that, I had 50,000 followers. But it wasn't just the followers that were the good result of that. It was the fact that by the end of those 60 days, I was very comfortable talking to the camera. And the reason why I was able to do 3 videos a day is because every single one of those videos was just talking to the camera. I didn't vlog at all. So it took me probably, I don't know, like 10 minutes to film the video, 2 minutes to edit it, and then post it. And it's not really that big of a lift.
I think too, part of the lesson in that too is showing up and doing the reps and also committing to doing something for a specific period of time. This is just like, I don't know if you guys have seen that trend where it's like advice I would give you, big sister advice I would give you if I wasn't afraid of hurting your feelings. Or they'll say like health advice I would give you if I wasn't afraid of hurting your feelings. If I wasn't afraid of hurting anyone's feelings, I would say, I think people give up so fast and then say, oh, it didn't work, the plan didn't work. And none of y'all talk like that. Sorry, that's mean. But I'm just like, I think that that's the truth. It happens with, for example, with freelancing. People will say to me, well, I tried freelancing, but it didn't work. And I'll say, oh, well, what did you do? And they're like, well, I applied to a few gigs. Babe, you took 1 week and you applied to 3 freelancing gigs. No, duh, it didn't work. Like you didn't stick to it for any amount of time. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, it's like if you put hair dye, you went to the hair salon, you had the hairstylist put the hair dye into your hair and then you washed it out 5 minutes later and you said, well, it didn't dye my hair and I don't want to pay $200 for this. No, duh, it didn't dye your hair. You washed it out for 5 minutes. What would you expect? You know what I mean? That doesn't make literally any sense. So I just think you have to treat it the same way. And I think when it comes to social media and building your personal brand, it is vulnerable to put yourself out there. It is vulnerable to share your perspectives because sometimes people aren't going to like your perspective and you might get hate comments. You might get people who are upset by what you said, whatever. And you have to own that. And I think part of that is being confident in who you are, trusting yourself, which we have episodes on those things too. You can go back and listen to the mindset side of this, but like that's part of it. And I think a lot of people don't have they're working on the confidence and the self-trust to be able to put themselves out there consistently. And so it isn't just about like filming a video and posting it. There is a mindset side to it. But I do think that a lot of people just give up so fast before you even gave it a chance to stick. So like, yeah. And I think sometimes creating a challenge the way that you did, right? Where you're like, I'm going to post 3 times a day for 60 days, or, I'm going to give it 90 days, or how I did my like 1-year experiment. I'm committing to a specific amount of time and then commit to the discipline that it takes to show up for whatever that is. And you can do it in smaller chunks. If you're like, you know what? I know myself and 60 days feels too long. Okay, I'm going to say for the first 30 days, I'm posting 1 video a day. And then at the end of 30 days, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say, okay, what worked? What didn't? Then for the next 30 days, I'm going to do 2 videos a day, or I'm doing 1 video a day, but I'm going to do 2 vlogs a week because I want to experiment with that, whatever it may be. But you can't give up halfway through and then say it didn't work. That's not how life works. You have to actually commit to the full plan in order to be able to confidently say the plan did not work. But you're tapping out on the plan before you've even given it a full shot.
100%. I feel like we have like 2 more hours worth of stuff that we could talk about with this. Like, obviously we're passionate about this topic and we love this topic so much. And I feel like we've learned so much over the past couple of years, and we're not coming at this from an expert POV. These are things that we actively have to work on. And that's another lesson. Like, you don't just learn it and then you're an expert at it. You have to continuously work at it because, like you just said, Grace, there is such a mindset aspect of it as well, and it's really hard to keep your mindset in check continuously as you're going through this journey. So I feel like we could talk about this for another like 2 hours, and we have way more on our outline that we didn't even cover in this episode. So let us know in Spotify if you like this episode, if there's anything else you want us to cover in kind of a follow-up, because we want to make this kind of like a personal brand series on the podcast. So yeah, let us know in Spotify your questions, comments, feedback, anything like that, or you can DM us on Instagram at the Life You Love Pod. We love hearing from you guys, but thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.